I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Lynn Braban. Lynn is from the Cornell University, and he's going to talk to us about integrated pest management.
Thank you, Lynette. As Lynette mentioned, I'm with a Cornell University Extension program. The full title is the New York State Integrated Pest Management Program of Cornell University. My office is in the County Extension Building, which if you haven't realized, for the past year plus is now up in Irondequoit on St. Paul. The old building, which was as old as me, is no more. It's torn down. But what our program, we are a statewide extension program that focuses on integrated pest management. Simply what integrated pest management, or IPM, is, we do applied research and adult education on how to better manage pests of all kinds and all contexts while reducing risks from unnecessary exposure to pesticides and other risks. So have a few things out on the table when you're done. One is that as a program, and our core funding is state appropriated money, we are celebrating this year 30 years, and so our annual report this year is actually a 30-year report. And so feel free to take one of those. So how much control do we have of the lights? Can we get those front lights down by chance?
Yeah.
Way to find out.
One of those will do it.
Not that one.
Bring it. You can bring it down more.
Maybe. How's that?
Yeah.
That'll probably do it. Okay, what Lynette asked me to talk about, that's what I do quite a bit of, is working with pest management situations in and around homes. And so I've entitled this "Removing Pests from Your Home Safely and Effectively." Moving on. So again, just a quick lesson on what IPM is, integrated pest management. It's a systematic and proactive approach to pest management. You know, how do we usually manage pests?
Raid
Yeah, but when do we spray?
in the house.
When you
When
see
you-
them.
Right-
when you
right
see
on
the
top
pest,
of it.
You know, we're reactive rather than proactive. And often when, maybe not that first pest, some people yes, but when it's not one mouse but 30 mice, okay. So this provides for better pest management while reducing the need for pesticide use. And you mentioned spray. What IPM is and what good, sustainable pest management is, it does not focus on product, but a process. Products are important, but it's the process they're used in which is key. So this is what we refer to as the IPM pyramid, and it just visually gives a description of what IPM is. And it's with the base of the pyramid being what's most important and where you spend most of your time. And this was developed for agriculture, but it also has a lot of relevance for homeowners, particularly relevance, as Terry knows, for landscapes and turf. But most of your efforts, you see, are spent in what are referred to as cultural practices. And that's how you manage your house, in this case. And then when you do have pest problems, the mechanical and physical means of removing the pests. And not so much when we're dealing with homes, but for agriculture, very important. The next series of possibilities, if that's not working, the mechanical, physical. In Terry's world, there are options for the biological control. Biological control is the use of predators, parasites, diseases, as the competitors of pests to control the pests. Again, there's a lot of possibilities in agriculture, some in landscape and turf, but it's not to date very practical for household pests. And then if all of those are not succeeding, then you go to the chemical. Actually, in the chemical, you have a hierarchy of products which are not as toxic, if you will, least toxic. By the way, non-toxic is not very accurate. Everything has some level of toxicity, so least toxic is more restriction. So you see, as we go up this pyramid in our pest management program, we're increasing toxicity to humans, pets, wildlife. Okay, so the risk goes up. And also, when we're when we're down at the base of the pyramid, we're spending most of our time, we're working on preventing pest situations. And as we go up it, then we're working more in terms of intervening. Okay, well, what is a pest? Well, a pest is a living organism.
Oh.
And you just see one?
Yes.
And I thought it was in the room. But anyway, it's not so much what it is. Okay, so in a very real sense, most, if not all, living organisms have their place. And again, I'm speaking as a human, so it's a place from my perspective, you know. And but it's what it does. And really, any organism can be in a situation, even organisms which we admire and appreciate, can be in a situation where it becomes a pest. And when does it become a pest? I have a list of examples here when it causes property damage. So my laser pointer is broken on this, but in the middle, that's termite damage on a school floor. Okay, so there's, termites have a very important ecological role in terms of recycling in the woods, not so much when they're in our structures. Okay. Mites with all the chewing, definitely can cause property damage. Eat or contaminate our food is another way in which they can become a pest. And so both those diagrams on the left, the cockroaches and mice, definitely are competitors, if you will, in our houses for our food. Not only on what they eat, but by their droppings, both urine and fecal matter, they literally can contaminate food. And that's usually it's the droppings and the urine and things where food poisoning comes in. So health risks, we already talked about that. Or it may just distract from our aesthetics and comfort. So, and then we consider it a pest. So the two pictures on the right, the one on the farther right, that's just weeds next to a school, not very attractive, right? And a little bit small by this picture, but those are geese on an athletic field. And the geese themselves may be rather attractive, but what they leave behind, which can have aesthetic down stuff. Well, what is a pesticide? There's a lot of misunderstanding of what a pesticide is. And that first statement is actually a legal definition. Okay? And it's any substance or mixture of substance intended for preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pest. So it's a very broad definition. And the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, US EPA, that's their definition. And they're the ones that make the laws. Okay? So it's just not insect sprays. Weed killers are pesticides. They're technically referred to as herbicides. So you may have heard the statement, no, I don't put pesticides in my lawn, I just put weed in feed. The weed part of that is a herbicide. It's a pesticide. Mouse poison, technically rodenticides. They're pesticides. Repellents, see the definition up there. Repelling. So something which is not meant to kill the pest or repel, but a chemical to repel the pest, that is legally a pesticide. It is regulated as a pesticide. Bactericides are also legally, technically pesticides, but they are regulated differently by different agencies. Okay, there are three broad laws and this is my definition for keeping your house pest-free. And here they are. Sanitation, exclusion, and communication. Those are those cultural frameworks. If you want to avoid just always being reactive, putting out pest fire after pest fire after pest fire. You need to pay attention to those three things. And we're going to take a look at these and make some broad statements about each one with some examples. Okay, sanitation. For pest management in buildings, in structures, this is the triad. Food, water, and harborage. What is harborage? A place to live, shelter, right? And this is what, if a pest finds their way, insect, mouse, etc., into your house, in order to survive, it needs these. So the more these are eliminated for the pest, the less likely that's going to go. It won't be able to get established if it doesn't have these. And you've got to think from the pest point of view. So, the kitchen floor may be spotless. A cockroach spends very, very, very little time in the middle of the kitchen floor. It's under the mop board, or maybe when it's mopping, that food particles are wiped back underneath there. This is key. Most of our pests in buildings and structures are nocturnal. And so food or garbage which is less accessible to them overnight is often a key issue. More than one organization, like a business park or a school, have changed their amount of pest situations they have just by changing that. Not making food or garbage easily available overnight to pests. And we do our general cleaning, but every once in a while you need to move the heavy stuff, what's known as deep cleaning. Get to underneath and behind the refrigerator, the kitchen stove, where that grease and food debris builds up. Storage. This is particularly important. A little bit more difficult in a house, but again, if you're having a situation which you need to get a high degree of control over in commercial kitchens and other food facilities, food is very important. Is the mantra for food storage is off the floor. Well, storage of any type, really, off the floor and away from the wall. That reduces harborage and also allows you to inspect the walls and the corners where pests like to be. So here's some examples. Up in the upper left, this is a hedgerow. Most of my work, by the way, is with IPM pest management issues in schools. And so many of these slides and the examples are from schools. But on the upper left, that's a thick hedgerow next to the building. And that increases what we refer to as pest pressure against the side of the building. It provides habitat in moisture, and and if there's any gaps or cracks in that mortar, in between the bricks, first of all, you won't even see them with that thick hedgerow there, and various types of pests may be living in that hedgerow and gain easy access. And so what we recommend, and the next slide to the right, is a piece of garbage there, unfortunately, but they did cut it back. This is the same school, at least a foot. So we recommend at least a foot gap, especially for schools and like in the vicinity of school kitchens. Okay, between the vegetation and the wall. The less the less pest pressure you want on the side of the structure, the less vegetation you want right up against that structure. On the upper right is an example. This is a food product that we found in what in my day they used to refer to as the home economics class. You can go buy something else in a high school kitchen. And this is in the middle of summer. So in other words, there hasn't been any use of this kitchen for a month or more. And there was accessible food in that cabinet. Coming down to the middle row over the left, this was an interesting picture. This was a hotel where we were having a statewide IPM meeting, and the hotel staff, of course, put out cakes for us at the meeting. Obviously, they always put cakes out there because the ants, see all those little dots?
Oh, no.
The ants were there just like that. So they either the hotel staff had trained the ants or the ants had trained the hotel staff, whichever way you went. In the middle is myself looking in a place which often is a good place to look for signs of structural pests, cockroaches, mice, etc. Is underneath the sink. There's often a source of moisture there if there's any condensation, or maybe even leaks. There's gaps in the walls that run into the walls where the pipes go in, and those are highways going from the walls into the rooms for pests. And so that's a good place to look for signs of pests, fecal droppings, etc. And also, if you need to use a patrol, that's a good place to have them also. In the middle picture on the far right, that is the classic, well, the take-home lesson there is, again, you have to think like the pest. And so the pests aren't going to be in the middle of the room. If they are, you've got a very severe situation, but they'll be in hiding places. So you've got to look at those hiding places. And that individual there is in the classic structural pest control posture of head down and butt up. Looking underneath in this case, a walk-in refrigerator. On the picture on the lower left, I just we're doing an inspection of a This is an employee's lounge associated with a school facility. And by the way, when it comes to schools, the school kitchens are usually clean, usually quite clean. Especially compared to restaurants. To be fair to restaurants, restaurants have a lot higher turnover of food. But where we often find problematic issues in terms of sanitation in schools is the teacher's lounge, and sometimes in the classroom. Because especially now, one thing we're seeking to address, we don't want to prevent it, but we think we need to be managed is breakfast in the classroom. But what I just want to point out the vending machine, and that, again, that would be an example of deep cleaning where that heavy thing needs to be moved at least once a year, probably better twice a year to clean behind. And you keep in mind that something like a vending machine can provide all the needs of a structural pest. Food from crumbs associated with the machine, condensation, water, and of course harborage. In the middle, on the bottom, that's a janitorial closet in a school. I open the door, and it's a classic example of clutter, of poor storage, and just excellent. If mice get established in a building, if you have a situation like this, you're going to have a very, very difficult time without cleaning up the clutter, really, in controlling, because there's too much harborage. There's a lot of harborage, and you can't get everywhere either. And then on the bottom on the far right, those are just some dumpsters that in the middle, those blue things, and for the idea of where you store your trash, the further away from the doors, the better. Okay, a couple of other things about conducive conditions, and again, just that foundation, the conditions around the foundation are what can promote pest pressure against the side of the building. So those are just some comments about that first law of sanitation. Exclusion. Exclusion is the other law as building pests out of the structure. Some tips on that is just do regular inspections of the exterior, looking for gaps. Our buildings, they move relative to each other, gaps are always opening, and so fall and spring are good times just to go around or have someone go around and look for those gaps and close into the appropriate materials. The reason I say fall and spring is that biologically those are often prime time for critters of various sorts to look to come into the buildings. And when you're doing this, you're looking not only for present problems like gaps or signs of pests, but thinking about future problems. Okay, so we have a vent on the side of the structure. There's no signs of animals accessing that vent, but is it vulnerable? Is that design of that vent or the openings of that vent is such that animals could get in, and what you might be able to do about that? And use appropriate materials. That's a whole hour presentation itself. I have a few comments on itself. So I think these are just some illustration. There's the sink, and again, most of these are in schools. Around the sink is a stream of sealant, and sealant, not caulk, is what's usually used for good exclusion. And I think most of these others we'll skip for right now for time. I do want to point this out. So the size of the opening depending on the pest. For a mouse, opening is larger than 1/4 inch. A mouse can get in. For a rat, opening is larger than 1/2 inch. Bat, the actual size varies in terms of the dimensions, but just keep in mind a bat can get an opening larger than 1/4 inch. And insect of some size can get it through any.
Just like that.
Materials for rodents, you got to think metal. Okay, and really not steel wool. There's a lot of other options there. There's a lot of good screens and vents that can be replaced now with things which are more pest-proof but still function well in terms of ventilation. Exclusion plates. So on the lower right, where that pipe that goes into the wall, there's that huge gap there. A rat, anything smaller can easily get into that. Okay. Exclusion plate, you probably have seen these, although you may have seen them where they have not been installed and maintained well. But there's a whole variety of them. There's a metal ring around the plate, and they have those which clip on now. and they need to be sealed, of course, against the wall. But that's the tool that needs to be to penetrate all those gaps or types of one sort or another to go through. This is for digging animals. They can dig under sheds, decks, additions that don't have basements. It's known as a trench screening or rat wall. And so that is an option. And if you have additional questions on that, I can tell you a little bit about the design of it. Essentially, it's screening which is attached to the bottom of the structure. It's buried in the ground and has a vertical shelf out so that the animal tries to go underneath it. Okay, so if you do have a pest situation, taking action, these are just the guidelines. If you need to take short-term action to solve a pest problem, you need to keep in mind, is it safe, the technique you're going to use? Will it be effective in controlling the pest? And is it legal? By long-term, though, you need to do sanitation, exclusion, and occupant education. The weak link in any pest management situation is almost always, what do you think?
Occupant education.
People. Yeah. So that key to effective pest management is communication. So IPM provides better pest control by reducing or eliminating risks associated with the dependence. That's what we want to get away with, dependence on pesticide. We don't want to treat a symptom. We want to treat the cause. So I think I probably about shot my wad, but if we had some time after Terry's and you deluge Terry with all great questions, and we could look at some either from slides or just if you have any questions. I also brought some of our propaganda over here with brochures and
Thank you. So if you have questions about the pest management, please write them down, because you're going to listen to Terry right now, and then you're going to see how both these presentations intertwine, and the question that you may have now may be answered by him, or it may expand the question once you hear what he has to say. So thank you, Terry. You're on.
Thank you. All right, so I am talking about a couple of things here, but I wanted to cater a little bit specific to this group. I talked to the Healthy Homes group about 6 weeks ago, really. And I just my goal is to kind of tell the story of water, because as everybody knows right now, water is pretty popular in the news. We're seeing what's happening in Texas, Flint, Michigan, and for those of you that don't know, we live on the largest freshwater supply in the world. So, Rochester is in this prime place right now to kind of be on the cutting edge of infusing some practices that we can mitigate stormwater. And that's what my goal is to kind of connect you guys to the story. What is stormwater? Stormwater is water that originates during precipitation, events, or comes from snow and ice melt. So this year we had very little snow. Last year we had tons of snow, if everybody remembers, shoveling all the time. But, very interesting, this time last year, we were down 7 inches in groundwater moisture. So we were actually in a drought, a 7-month drought. And we went into May with a drought, with stormwater, the recharge. This year, we have had less snow, and we are at ground level. So I think you were saying that some basements, people are talking about their basements being wet right now. But we've had this time last year, it was like frozen 12 inches down too, still. And so we had very little moisture in the soil. We had frozen soil, and there was really like no drainage happening. Part of what's happened with stormwater is we've tried to control it as humans. As we see, that doesn't really work very well, because water is going to seek its own level. So what I'm proposing is people putting in some rain gardens, paying attention to how water comes off their property, and looking at each one of your properties as its own system to be a part of the larger system. Stormwater, it is a necessity for a normal functioning hydrological cycle. This cycle is what supports all life, flora and fauna alike. Stormwater is needed to recharge groundwater and aquifers. Human use of these pockets of water are what changed our evolution. It is an integral component to a much larger biological system, which we are a part of, for those that don't know. Without this component, all biological systems would have failed many, many years ago. This would have made the human story a very short, dull, and dry story. Water is life. So, this is a photo I took of one of my favorite spots in Rochester, Grand Eastman Park. You're familiar with it? Right on the Lakeshore Boulevard area. I grew up right around here, and this is just a healthy ecosystem that really, it takes all the water that's kind of draining towards Lake Ontario and filters it before it goes to the lake. So there's these two huge pockets, Durand Lake, Eastman Lake. About 15,000 years ago, that was the last ice stage in this area. The Wisconsin ice glacier kind of receded north, and that's what scoured the Great Lakes and the Finger Lakes. These pockets and along the lake shore were wetlands, and they're extremely important for filtering water before it goes out to Lake Ontario. Luckily, we had George Eastman and Dr. Duran was the other gentleman. They bought that huge land property, the huge property along the lake, and they wanted to secure it as a wildlife area. So this is actually a landscaped park, but the two depressions are part of the wetland in this area. So just that is like, that's my home. I love it. Anybody wants to go for a hike over there, let me know. Fresh water. Out of all the water on Earth, saline water in oceans, seas, and saline groundwater make up about 97% of it. Only 2.5 to 2.75 is fresh water. 1.75 to 2% frozen in glaciers right now. Now that numbers are obviously right now. Ice and snow. 0.5 to 0.75% as fresh groundwater and soil moisture. And less than 0.01% of it is surface water in lakes, swamps, and rivers. So, everybody knows the Great Lakes area. That is the largest freshwater lake area, besides one place in Africa, North Africa, or no, South Africa. That's another large freshwater lake system, believe it or not. So, what are we doing with this area? That's Lake Ontario. This was shot 2 years ago from the plane. That is 104 West Parkway, and we have taken the land and we needed to farm it. We want to really make the use out of it, but as you can see, we really took away those buffer zones from the fresh water here. So you can see that dark green area that kind of goes along the stream. We've left some trees here. That's probably what it looked like 10,000 years ago, 12,000 years ago. And all this area is being farmed, and believe it or not, even though there's soil there, it doesn't make the best place for permeable soil surface. So the water has very little places to recharge, to rebuild in like that photo I showed you Durand Eastman, before it goes out to the lake. This is where we run into problems like we have, if anybody's heard, with algae blooms and things like that. So you have phosphorus from the soil, you have nitrogen that goes in the fertilizer of all those farming areas, and it just, when we get a rain event like we have been even last year, washes away, goes right to the lake before it has the opportunity to get filtered out by the natural ecosystem. Stormwater and humans. We have altered the landscapes to fit our needs as humans. I'm a little bit different. Lynn likes to protect us from wildlife coming in. I want to connect us to nature because I think we're very disconnected as humans. We have worked at changing, stopping, and rerouting natural water systems. What is the point? Obviously, we're seeing right now in the news, it is impossible. This has proven to work against us time and time again. And if we just look, what is happening today? We can only do that for so long, but they will find their own routes. Right? Water always sees its own level. This is a photograph taken from space. It was 2013. That's a natural occurring event. It's not a bad event. It's called bleaching on Lake Ontario. So it's a change in temperature really quickly when it's very hot, and it's not a bad thing. But Lake Erie, Lake Michigan, over the last few years, we've seen algae blooms, blue-green algae, toxic algae, and that is coming from improper buffers along the lakefront, and just tons of water going into those lakes, coming from storm events, and carrying a lot of sediment, phosphorus, and things like that. What that does is it changes the chemistry of the lake. So then you have things like algae blooms, blue-green algae, toxic algae. It's kind of nice. Beautiful area from space there. Stormwater management. Stormwater management has been a part of the human story since the earliest civilizations. Today we are further disconnected from our own role in the natural systems we are a part of. And we are nature. It's so funny. If you study like the Native American languages, even in this region, there was no nature or environment. They never saw themselves as a part of it. They were always a part of it. So there was nothing that separated. How can we reconnect? This is a photo I took from online. This is a water well in India. Just a beautiful piece of art, but these serve as a purpose. This one's, I think, over 1,000 years old. There's a woman right now who's actually kind of GPSing these water wells, but the purpose of this was to take those huge amounts of rainwaters off of the Himalaya mountains that were coming down the Ganges, store it, and let it slow down before it goes out into the natural land. They were actually using this as like a mitigation technique. So, and they enjoyed it, obviously, creating community. This is one of the first water wells. I believe this is in Iran, and again, just they were thinking ahead. They wanted to capture the rainwater because they were huge events then, and then they didn't have it for another season, right? That's what happens in South Asia, places like Bangladesh. It rains for 3 months, and it's either feast or famine when it comes to water. Well, if people have been paying attention, it's kind of happening around here. That's what we're running into. Water in our homes and our communities. Last year's rain events, hottest and driest May on record in this area of 175 years of weather data. And then it was actually about 6.3, but 7.5 inches of rain in the city of Rochester in the first 20 days of June. Just right here in Rochester, New York. You guys remember, it was really hot and dry, but it was like, oh, it's spring, it was so cold from the snow, we were like, forget it, it's the best. But that was actually a drought, and we were seven inches down in that stormwater recharge. We were in a drought, the soil was in a drought condition. So what happened was that huge amounts of rain came in, and it just flooded our waterways. Luckily, we have some containment areas like Durant that filter it. As we see right now, what's happening in Flint, when there's improper management and we let politics get in the way of our natural ecosystems, we have 12,000 children that have been exposed to drinking water with high levels of lead right now. From 2013, there was about 2.5% that was found in their bloodstream, 5% as of this past year, 2015. So I think it was yesterday, 3 people got charged for that, right? And I kind of want to like connect each community. It's kind of an amazing thing that we can do here if we start to educate each other on sharing the story of water and humans. Because each neighborhood can kind of look at it itself as a functioning part of the ecosystem. Each homeowner can look at that his or herself as a functioning part of the ecosystem. And then we can hopefully mitigate. This is a photo taken from 2012, I believe, aerial photo. And this is what we're looking at. Rochester's not a huge city, but if you have like 7 inches of rain coming in 20 days, what do you think happens to that? How much of it gets stored in the groundwater? Where's it going? It's going to pick up all the sediment, all the stones, phosphorus, everything, and just get taken right out to the lake. If we have 1 hour, about 2 hours of a rain event, steady rain, that's about 1 inch of rain for the city of Rochester. And that is too much for Van Layer to really filter before it goes to the lake. And that goes right to the storm drain. And even though we have a pretty updated sewer system in the city, compared to other cities, it is a mixed-use system. So after that 1 inch occurs, it can't be filtered before it goes out to the lake, and it just goes down the storm drain right to the lake. Now this is the largest freshwater supply in the world, and we don't really have any active part as citizens, and so that's my goal. For those of you that don't know, the U.S. Geological Survey, there's one rain station and water measurement station on the Genesee River at 4th Street Bridge. You can go online and check this data. This is last year's events. We see this yellow line is kind of the average for June. And then we see these huge spikes, right? June 13. Boom. Tons of water flooding our system. This is July. Didn't really stop in June. If you remember, July there was a couple events that were like 3 or 4 inches of rain in a one night. It was amazing. Rainwater runoff. Did you know the average home roof is about 1,300 square feet and generates 832 gallons of runoff during a single 1 inch rainfall event? Think about that. Average home. How many homes on each street? So we not only have the paved areas where there's no place for the groundwater to really get stored. We've done a good job with mitigating wetlands around this area, but we can still do better work in the city. It's just amazing to me to think about that stat right there. So what can be done? Like I said, I kind of have a different approach. I like to raise awareness of the story of water, connect us to water. Hopefully that new park that you guys are putting in, you can have some water education part of it. We should get a grant for some stormwater education, because there's a lot of money being funded to this area for that reason.
Thank you for the reference.
Assessing your home's rainwater runoff. It's supposed to rain tonight. It's supposed to rain into the morning a little bit, but just take a look. What's going on? What's happening with the gutters? Is there water being not going down the gutter into the storm drain? Hello. How are you? We can wait. So check your storm drains, check the gutters, and check the driveways. And what's happening with the runoff there? Where is it going? Part of what the reason why I like to kind of tell the story of water is because I think we think of it as like another thing we have to separate from our story of nature. And really, it doesn't have to be like that. We can get children involved, educate them, raise awareness, make just this activity of looking where water goes when it's in a rain event from your home into a fun event. Educate them, get them involved. What's happening out there? Put in some rain gardens. I have brought some information just printed from the press, picked it up. I got some how to make a rain barrel. I have a outfall monitoring observation sheet you guys can kind of pass around and check out. This is for more of a municipality, but you can use it for your house. It kind of like it gives you some basic tools to look on what's happening with the stormwater from your property. Simple solutions. As I said before, you've seen the news right now. We are seeing the effects of climate change. We can be a leader in Rochester with awareness and just educating and getting people engaged like this, like good neighbors that are interested in education and awareness of water. And I think we have all seen it's not really like, it's not just up to the city of Rochester, the government there. They do, there's a lot of great people that are working hard to get funding for these things, but I believe that it can be done with just a little bit of education and awareness and kind of getting neighborhoods and whole neighbors working together. Create community like those water wells did in India. Become an H2O hero with Monroe County. The Watershed Education Collaborative, they have done a phenomenal job over the last few years getting kids involved. They have a little H2O hero guy that's done by Charlotte. They have drain tags that go on so people know not to dump things down the storm drains. But they're engaging the community. Build your own rain barrel. They also have rain barrel workshops that for like a neighborhood association, if you were having a cookout or something, or that when that park opens up next year, you can have a rain barrel workshop there.
That's right. That's exciting.
Route your gutters to the areas of lawn, just simple things like that. You know, if you have a neighbor where there's water buildup in the basement, even during these dry times, it hasn't rained for the last 2 weeks, but there's still moisture in the basement, right? I was saying that groundwater it's fully charged right now in this area. So if we get some rain tonight and these people's basements are already wet, what should they be doing? Just helping them take their gutter from the storm drain where it looks like it's supposed to be going in. Most of the time, a lot of those are broken, tying into the city drain. Routing it to a little bit of a soil area where there's some plants, easy solution. And you would be amazed at how much that mitigates stormwater and kind of filters it out before it goes to the lake. Put in a simple rain garden. With the Watershed Education Collaborative, I did a project for 3 years called, it was the Rain Garden Brighton. I worked with Monroe County, installed 20 rain gardens, and these were people who volunteered to be kind of like these educational tools for the neighborhoods. Happy to assess if there's want to get a neighbor involved. It's a really simple thing. It's really just having a depression, routing the gutter there, and putting some plants that will soak up this water. But if you could have that water even just sit there a little bit longer before it goes into the storm drain, again, you're mitigating stormwater. Now, there's going to be some things that are coming up that we have to be concerned with just stagnant water, so we should always keep aware of that. Don't want mosquito vectors in this area. Be aware of that. Mosquitoes, because of the mild winter, I'm having people say they're getting bit right now. Believe it or not, life cycles increase because not those cold temperatures. So if you put some plants in, then you get kind of like a balanced ecosystem. You get birds that help eat that stuff, and that's what you need, not just an area with standing water. But that would help with mitigating. These are the rain garden guidelines by the EPA. Designing and planting a rain garden is much like creating any other perennial garden with a few unique differences. The garden must be located where runoff can be diverted into it, at least 10 feet away from the building. That's not always easy in urban environments like this, so be aware of that. And a shallow saucer depression is created in the garden to hold rain as it soaks in. The garden should be about 20 to 30% of the area from which it is receiving runoff. Soil replacement and additional preparations are sometimes needed for success. Good soil mix for rain gardens is 50 to 60% sand, 20 to 30% topsoil, and 20 to 30% compost. Now, why is that important? Anybody? Take a guess? Hold the moisture in, that's right. And if we go out, let's say these turf areas, it's nice, the green grass is growing right now, but if you took a glass of water, dumped it, it would probably stand on top because it's compacted soil in these urban environments. It's not good organic matter always, So they're telling you this helps with drainage. It allows it, instead of hitting some of these soil areas, not be a parking lot and then go right in. Have a little bit of organic matter in there, and it will soak up better. So, species of perennial plants and shrubs native to our region and area. Now, I have a whole list here that you can take home. It is common native rain garden plants. So I have wildflowers here, grasses, sedges, trees and shrubs under 30 feet, medium 30 to 50 feet, and large 50 to 20, 50 to 100. Excuse me? I got enough for everyone here. And I didn't send plants in. But we also, and I'm not just saying this, there are many places that sell good native plants, but for Cole Garden Center, we specialize in native plants. And if you say you're with Lynette or your friend, we'll give you a discount.
All right.
That's right. And there's actually some programs that we offer for even groups like this where there's money donated for every purchase of like wetland plants or native plants. But Garden Center is, we try and specialize in native plants for this area. So.
Where are you located?
We are on, we're on 441, about 2.5 miles east of 250. So it's way out in Penfield, like get on the border. It's a farm area. You come out, if you're gonna spend an hour, have some water, walk around, bring your dog, bring a kid, and there's these little, we have like little kind of examples of rain guard, butterfly guard. And yeah, but this is just a common list. Most of these plants are native to the Northeast. I'm going to send some links to you after too that kind of talk about more information. There's a National Asthma and Allergy Association. Great link, updates you right for this area on pollen, on mold, and things like that. And when we have rain events like we did in June, that's where you're going to have water that's staying in basements, poor drainage. But like I said, just start by your own house. Look around the foundation. Where is there standing water after a rain event? Where does it go from the driveway? And don't, even if it looks like the gutter's going into the storm drain, into the municipal city stormwater, still routing it into a grassy area or a little depressed area where some plants can go, it will help.
There's a lot of concern now about pollinators, which include our native bee species. It's important for eating for us, and things like that.
All food.
But there's very good data that our native bee species, they develop along with our native plants, and even the beautiful introduced flowers don't provide as much resources for our native bees as our native plants.
Correct. You might want to put stuff in that would be like tropical because can grow in this zone. The USDA map, if you look at the planting zones, is actually moving up in zones. But using natives is really beneficial. Right now, the spring ephemeral plants are coming out of like the lower forest areas because the leaves are not emerged on trees. These are like so beneficial for early pollinating insects, bees, and you can see the bees that come out of the soil right now. Those little sand bees. They don't bite. They're just looking for a little bit of food, and they're going to help.
They don't sting?
Well, you have to like grapple. They don't defend their nests. No, so this time of year when we get calls on ground bees, if I got a call in August on ground bees, then I really know they're talking about wasps in the ground.
Right.
And wasps, yellow jackets, do defend the nest site because they're social. What we refer to these ground or solitary bees, they are not social. Each burrow is essentially one female, and they don't. You have to go out of the way to get stung by them. There is some concern, like we do, like for young children on playgrounds, because they might be running around and just get stung on them. But in most lawns and whatnot, they're very non-aggressive. They're important pollinators, and this spring is when they're out. It's especially in the kind of sandy soils. In fact, if you have a situation in the spring and these ground bees and you feel you just can't tolerate them or the risk is too high, like a preschool or something like, then you call Terry's outfit and interact with them and how can we increase the organic matter, because it's the kind of sandy, low vegetation basin is their habitat for this.
Yeah, they're opportunists, so that the grass is there. They're going to grow.
I have a photo in one of my presentations of last year in my neighborhood. I live in the 19th ward, by the way. And I was walking with my daughter and my 5-year-old granddaughter. And there have been some excavations done, I think it's some plumbing work and whatnot in the front yard. There's one place. And so the ground bees that spring were really there. And so I had my 5-year-old daughter stand by them so I can get a good picture of it. You can tell by the look at her face that you trusted Grandpa, but she wasn't too sure about this.
I wouldn't have been either. All
Can
right,
everybody
so
get those papers? Because I have more if anybody needs them.
Yeah. Any suggestions for Mr. Woodchuck? Things you can put in the hole to help drive him away?
What about the woodchucks?
Something to put in the hole to drive him away and give them to your neighbor or move down the street or something.
Yeah, there's not too much good success in terms of repellents in woodchucks. There are a variety of animal repellents, usually marked for dogs and cats. You won't get anything from mothballs, but that you may want to try. But is the hole up against the structure?
No, actually, it's a shed that's up on a 4x4 and the woodchuck's down under.
Okay, that's where the trenching comes in.
I saw that there.
Yeah,
but I was wondering how deep can you go so he still doesn't go down and under?
You go a foot down, 6'6" shelf, then backfill it, maybe put a little rock on the shelf or something, and you just backfill it, you can landscape it. That will probably take care of it.
Okay.
Your weaknesses are where, like around the corners, you have to make sure that, that your fencing overlaps and secured well,
Yeah.
so there's nothing that the animal can work upon. But that works very, very well for keeping burrowing animals out.